Thank you, Austri. My name is Lisa. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Lisa.
What haven't you heard from my son?
Nada.
Oh my gosh. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for asking me. I love you. Lisa, alcoholic. My sobriety date is May 21st, 2006. So I just celebrated 19 years a couple months ago now. My home group is called Sisters in Recovery. We meet on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. at the Good Shepherd Baptist Church in Linwood. So if you're in Linwood on a Saturday morning, come by. It's a great women's meeting. I'd love to see you. So thank you. You pretty much do know everything. I'm a talker. My sponsor, Lorraine, talks about silent scorn. And it's always kind of baffled me because I don't understand it, you know? Like, I wish I could shut up if I'm mad. So do a lot of other people, but it kind of just comes out, you know, it's all just right there. What you see is what you get. So I've said before when I spoke at different places that my mother was the alcoholic in my family, and that's not necessarily true. My family was kind of riddled with them. They're everywhere. That doesn't make me an alcoholic, right? What makes me an alcoholic is the obsession and the allergy. Once I start, I can't stop. And when I'm not drinking, that's all I'm thinking about is drinking. And that started for me very early. And I'll say, I think this pretty much sums it up. It's a story that my mom likes to tell. And that is when I was in kindergarten, apparently I came home one day and I asked her if we had a set of encyclopedias. And she said, yeah, why? I said, well, my teacher said I need to read them. So she didn't really think much of it. And then we get to parent-teacher conference that year. And my kindergarten teacher proceeded to tell her that I approached her and told her I wanted to take over her classroom. And she said, well, if you go home and you read the encyclopedias, then I'll give you a shot. So I pretty much, for as long as I could remember, wanted to control things, thought I could do it better, wanted everybody else's job. Nobody did it right, you know, all of that kind of thing. But at the same time, the funny thing, when I was younger, I never felt like I was good enough. You know, I would lie a lot to be whatever I thought whoever I was talking to at the time wanted me to be. So when I got sober, it was quite an experience, and it took me a while to. And I don't think I'm done yet, actually, figuring out what's going on here. But, you know, it's a journey. So I started drinking at a very early age. I did a lot of drinking. I blacked out very young. You know, another story that my mom likes to tell is when my cousin and I my aunt was getting married. My cousin and I, during the reception, would walk around and take the champagne that people hadn't drank off the table, hide under the table, drink the champagne. I don't remember it, but that's probably because I was drinking a lot of champagne. And I was really young. So it was just something that I did. It solved my problem. From as far as I can remember. I still lied. I still didn't know who I was or who I wanted to be. But I didn't have to care when I was drinking. And, you know, it got to the point, by the time I was in high school, I didn't know what else there was. And the family that I had, when I was drinking, when anybody was drinking, like if you weren't punching people and pulling hair, you were just doing it wrong, because we were fighters and that's what we did. I got in a lot of trouble. I did the standard, well, maybe it's not standard. Maybe to most of you it is, but running away from home, not going to school, back talking to my parents. It got to the point when I was probably 18 years old, my father stopped talking to me. And that went on for many years. But that's probably later in the story. So it just kind of went on like that. I was a hellion, my poor parents, the standard stuff. When I was 19 years old, I had a son. And, I thought I was going to try to do right for a little while. And it lasted for a little while, until it didn't anymore. And, I was back to what I was doing before. So I was 19 when he was born. So, and I wasn't smart enough to like get a fake ID or get into bars when I was younger, or I just was too scared, whatever. But so I would get, alcohol from friends or parties, back in the day, we were having kegs in the woods, so that's the kind of stuff that we did, and so after Seth, I'm turning 21 and then all bets were off. I sold roses, which was probably a horrible idea. But I would go into the bars, right? And I was one of those was selling roses in the bars. And I would sell a few roses and then I'd put the basket in the car and go hang out in the bar for the rest of the night, So it really kind of took off then. And it went like that. I got arrested several times. Driving negligent, DUI. I was arrested for fighting, which I know seems odd. No? Yeah, I was arrested for assault several times. So, and it was during that period, probably early 20s, and I think that's when my dad had just had enough. I mean, it was horrible. I was horrible, to them. Now, by this time, years earlier, and let me backtrack a little bit, my mom had quit drinking. I think it was about 13 when she quit drinking. And so when I was 16, she tried to put me in a treatment center. Well, she did put me in a treatment center. I didn't stay, but she did put me in a treatment center. And at the time, I didn't take any of it seriously because I just kind of thought, well, she quit drinking. So now she doesn't want anybody around her to drink or have any fun. So, I didn't take any of it seriously. There might have been a seed planted. I guess there probably was back then. But it probably took me a long time to figure it out if there was, because I didn't take any of it seriously at all. So fast forward and we're kind of doing the deal, right? I'm doing the best that I can. I'm drinking. My son is, when I think back to the times that he maybe could have changed my mind. I remember looking back and having moments of clarity. I remember being gone most of the night and walking into the apartment to see him standing there in the hallway like this, He was maybe 5 or 6. He was horrified on a regular basis by my behavior. And it didn't matter. Alcohol was my solution. That was the end of it. And even when I had those moments of clarity, right? Like I didn't know how to do it any differently. I didn't know there was a different way. Everybody that I grew up around, my family, they drank. When there was problems, they drank. When there wasn't problems, they drank, I just didn't know that there was a different way to do things. So, So then I had my daughter. I think I was 32 when I had Sierra. And still the same thing. And actually, so when what got me in, I always tell people I was sentenced to Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't come in willingly. I had a DUI on May 20th. And at that particular point in time, well, Sierra was in the car with me. She was 3 at the time when I got sober, and she was in the car. So I was looking at a lot of trouble. And I kind of knew the deal because I had been in this situation before. So I knew what to do to kind of make the judge happy when I went to court. And so I did those things. And for the first time that I can remember, when I got to the assessment, I didn't lie. I told the truth. And that was pretty much the end of it, right? They said, you need treatment. And by this time I had had doctors, I had had people telling me that, maybe I had a problem with alcohol, which I was the kind of person back then that if you have a problem with my drinking, then leave. I don't need you around me, right? It was, that's just how I was with it. So I got the DUI. I did go to IOP because of course I can't go to inpatient because I have a job. I couldn't do that. So I did intensive outpatient, and that's where the journey started. I didn't want to be there. I didn't think I needed to be there. I thought anybody that told me that they were sober longer than a year was lying because I didn't understand why you would do that. It didn't make any sense to me. And, Sisters in Recovery was actually the first meeting that I went to because, and I mean, looking back, thank God, but at IOP, I had to go and I had to get the slip signed, and I was on probation, of course, so I had to do all of that and the checking in and everything. So I went to meetings, and Sisters was the first one. I mean, and honestly, I think I thought they were all crazy. I just didn't understand. I didn't understand any of it. Lorraine, I would follow her to the bathroom and like ask questions constantly, right? What are they talking about? What does this mean? I don't understand any of this, and she was always very patient and would explain it to me. But the obsession to drink did not leave me right away. It feels like months for me to not think about alcohol all day. Sitting on my hands, trying to remember the Serenity Prayer, and just trying to going to meetings. I remember so I got sober in May. So the first meeting that I started going to besides Sisters on a regular basis was the bonfire meeting at Mukilteo Beach. And it was my first service position because I started doing the coffee there. And somebody told me, don't mess up the coffee. And so I was scared, right? Well, I have to go because I have to take the coffee. So I showed up even when I didn't want to. And it was great because, I don't think I would have gone most of the time had I not had something to do and really been scared of what y'all would have done to me if I didn't bring coffee. So I did it, and I was there, and I could never hear anything because, you show up at that meeting and there was a potluck beforehand, and then everybody sits around the fire and has a meeting, and there was typically a lot of people. It was really hard to hear, but I would just circle the perimeter, right? Pick up on what I could, but I was there. I was present. I think I was hoping that it would just rub off on me. I didn't really understand the process yet. So I was just like osmosis, right? Just whatever you have, just let me have it. But it took quite a few months for me to not think about alcohol all the time. And it was rough. It was really rough. And then when I was 8 months sober, my son was screwing around on some ice at Martha Lake, and he fell in and he drowned. He was 15 years old, and we lost him. And I remember, so if anybody's new and you get a sponsor and it's like me, I was told you call me every day for the first 30 days. There's a reason for that. Because when I was in the hospital, she was the first one I called. I didn't even think about it. Didn't even think about it. It was automatic. She took me, she said, well, we're going to a meeting, right, the next day. We went to the Alano Club, the Linwood Alano Club. And I remember being at the hospital and thinking to myself, well, I don't have to be sober now. I don't have to stay here, right? This is my out. I don't have to be here. And when I walked into the Linwood Alano Club the next day, you couldn't fit another person in that room. And in the shock and everything that was going on, and ego, huge ego. I remember walking into that room and thinking, well, I can't drink now. Look at all these people. I can't tell them I went out and got drunk. So, Alcoholics Anonymous showed up for me. You guys showed up for me in a way that I will never forget. And has kind of been, it's become what I try to do, right? Just showing up for people in Alcoholics Anonymous, showing up for Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And trying to keep in my mind all of the time and remember that it is a pleasure and a gift to do anything for Alcoholics Anonymous, because that's what was done for me. So I don't remember much of the following year. I was talking to my sponsor about this morning, some stuff, more will be revealed, always being revealed. And I don't know, I think I automatically got focused on survival, right? Just surviving. It was already ingrained in me, even after 8 short months, right? What's the solution? What do we do now, right? I don't know if I was thinking go to a meeting and help somebody. I don't think I was. I think that took a little bit longer, but I knew that I needed to survive. And there was somebody that I saw in the hospital, actually one of the friends that he was with this night. And I was standing outside the door and watching him, and he burst into tears when he saw me. And the intuitive thought came, you need to go and hug him right now and tell him that everything is going to be okay. Now, I wasn't capable of coming up with something like that, a thought like that on my own. But I did it and I trusted it. And, that's what I tried to do. For the next year, like I said, I don't really remember much, just trying to survive, but I think, and what I didn't realize until probably fairly recently was that was step 2 for me, right? Coming to believe that that power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I was depending on it. Everything was there. Like I didn't have anything else that I could count on other than that, and it was as much of an attitude as I had in those first 8 months. It was like, all right, God, you got me now. You got me now. Let's do this thing. So, I made it and continued on. And I think it took my dad. Now at this point, he hadn't spoken to me for, gosh, I think 15 years. It was 15 years at this point. And I still had to stay sober for about another year and a half before he started speaking to me again. It took him a while. Even after the loss that the family had suffered, it took him a little while to trust me again and to understand that I wasn't just, because I was full of lies. I'll never do it again, I promise, right? That'll be the last time, I promise. I'll do this, I'll do that, whatever. And it took him a couple more years to believe me. So but he did eventually start talking to me again. It did come around. I mean, when I got married 10 years ago, he was at my wedding and he walked me down the aisle. And, I got to do a father-daughter dance with him, at the wedding. And that was a miracle. That was definitely a miracle. And I think that just shows, yet again, for me, the power of Alcoholics Anonymous and what it can do, right? So let me see, my daughter is forever grateful. I loved, my daughter hung out in meetings with me all the time in early recovery, right? It was okay back then. I'm not sure how it goes now. It doesn't seem like there's, I don't know. She would run around the room all over the place. I didn't really pay attention what y'all were thinking. Just like, you just be here and do what you got to do. Maybe some people were mad. I didn't notice. But she, she grew up in Alcoholics Anonymous. She's 22 now. So, and she grew up in Alcoholics Anonymous. After I came in, I have a couple other family members that came in after me. I'd like to think that I was kind of an example, right? An attraction. Things changed drastically for me after I got sober and after we lost Seth, right? That really kind of, but I had to surrender. I had to surrender to this thing. And I had to have faith in the power greater than me. And so I hope that it was a little bit of an example for them that what could happen and how lives could be changed. So fast forward into service. It took me a long time to get into service. I'm not really sure why. It took me a long time to sit through those meetings. And since I've gotten into service, it's been several years now. Since I've gotten into service, things have drastically changed for me. It has changed the entire trajectory of my recovery and of my life. And I think I know where I was. So it was the Assembly 2019. And I think, I'm not going to say what we were talking about, but there was a lot of debate going on about something. So I was a GSR at the time for a home group that didn't really have a whole lot to say. Vote your conscience, right? Vote your conscience. I think I was GSR for this group for like 4 years. So they're like, just do your thing. And so I walked into that assembly and that conversation knowing how I was going to vote. I knew what I was going to say. I knew what was going to happen. I knew how I was going to vote. I knew how it was going to go. And I sat there and I listened to person after person get up to the microphone, and eventually they changed my mind. And I was dumbfounded. Like, how did you do that? Like, nobody can change. I was just, and that was it. I was hooked. I was hooked from that point on. And I've been involved ever since. And like I said, it's definitely changed the trajectory of my sobriety and my life. I think it's meant everything to me to be able to be of service and give back to Alcoholics Anonymous. So yeah, 6 more minutes. I don't really know what else to say. My mind is going blank.
Great.
I guess if anybody's, for those of you that are new, if anybody's, I guess just hang on to, I said this morning in a meeting, right? It took me a little while when I got in and to be able to listen and to hear. And like I said, I followed Lorraine around everywhere. It didn't make any sense to me what, this all meant. I was very opinionated. I was judgmental. I was self-righteous. Well, still am. Really. One of the things that I've done, and I noticed this, so I started doing some step work recently. And when I looked at my book, I started step work this exact same time a year ago. So apparently, like the annual house cleaning is necessary for me. It just kind of comes up, which is great. But it just hang on. And what do they say? Don't wait 5 minutes before the miracle happens. You know, I mean, because for this hard-headed, stubborn, opinionated, self-righteous, ego-driven, you know, I finally let go of all that and surrendered it all and just came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, which in the beginning, like the first thing I thought when I read that step was that implies I'm insane. And how dare you? But that's what's happened. So, you know, hang in there, follow the ones that have been here, get the sponsor, get the home group, do the stuff, right? Because, you know, it came to me eventually. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much again for letting me speak. But